Thank you for joining us. Good morning to our West Coast and good afternoon to East. This is a slightly different webinar that most of our accounts have been used to. This is going to be a panel discussion, and we'll discuss this with Lisa Anderson, who's our expert supply chain consultant, and also David Smith, who just joined us as our COO. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. So I'm going to introduce both of them. Most of you met me already, and I'll moderate this little discussion. We're going to keep it under a half hour because we know how valuable everybody's time is. But we've all been hearing about the Amazon effect, which is driving this dramatic disruption. And we want to make sure that we all are ready for that too. So something about Lisa. She's been ranked number 16 in SAP Supply Chain Influencers, and she's also recognized as one of the top 1% of consultants worldwide. She has a very deep experience helping manufacturers and distributors maximize their value. And most of our accounts, and hopefully some of the new people that have joined us, are also in that arena. Lisa is the founder and president of the LMA Consulting Group, the consulting firm that helps also manufacturing distribution elevate their business performance. And she's the author of the forthcoming book about the Amazon effect. So hopefully when it's all out, we're all going to read it. David Smith, who's our COO, has over 20 years experience in senior management positions with Union Pacific Railroad, FedEx, Oracle. That's just some of them. He has a PhD from Trinity College and an MBA from the University of Tennessee. But he also has managed SAP and Oracle rollouts. So he brings a very deep understanding also not just of the theory, but also of the practice. And now he's going to also help us with business one. So some of the things we want to ask Lisa and for David to comment on, what is the Amazon effect?
So the Amazon effect is, I mean it as a metaphor. So although my clients, who are mainly manufacturers and distributors, rarely compete head-on with Amazon, every single one of them have been significantly impacted by Amazon. And from that point of view, what's changed for them is that if they used to ship in 1 week to their clients, they would be shipping in a day. If they used to take a month, they're trying to ship in a half a week or half a month. In essence, it's really been cut in half. The lead time expectations are dramatically reduced if they want to stay viable, let alone successful in this environment. Additionally, there's 24/7 visibility and accessibility that would be the expectation. So like one of my clients answered the phone on a Sunday from a customer, and I thought that was interesting enough that he actually answered the phone, but he was getting a haircut, and he said, "Can I call you back in an hour?" So he called back in an hour, and by the time he called back, the customer had already found another source of supply, which I thought was just amazing that all this happened on a Sunday, and they were, that accessible, and yet still lost that particular customer to another supplier. However, he's very accessible in general, so they come back to him. So anyway, my point is that
it's definitely a lesson, that we all experience, shopping on Amazon and having that service, and all of a sudden that gets translated, obviously, to a business-to-business environment.
Yes, exactly. This was definitely a business-to-business environment. And it depends, of course, on what industry you're talking about. If something is urgent in terms of a weekend, but even in the industries you would think would not be as urgent, like building products, it's actually one of the most time time-sensitive industries. I find most of my clients in that industry ship same day or next day, and next day is sometimes considered to be late, if you will. So, really there's a really significant change in the lead time expectations. There's a significant change in terms of visibility in your supply chain, knowing where, just like Amazon, where is your item along the way. That type of thinking from a B2B conceptually is carrying through. Clients want to know, customers want to know, when am I going to get, when can I be assured I'm going to receive my goods? Because I'm planning to have the most efficient process. And, in order for me to keep a high level of profit while providing even better service for my customers, I need to be clearer on when it's going to arrive and how I can plan that all effectively. So there's accessibility into the supply, or visibility into the supply chain, and accessibility to key resources, which also is facilitated by websites and online tools where they can get information and answers at any time of the day. We're also in a global environment today, so what's in our time zone, it might seem like regular business hours, is not at all what our customers think is regular business hours. And so, as much as my clients have nothing to do with Amazon, for the most part, they have everything to do with Amazon.
Right. I could, from our clients, we hear the expectations from the customer is constantly changing due to this Amazon effect. And really the big push is, if you ask, what do the customers want, no matter what industry they're in, no matter B2B or B2C, it starts with perfect, free, and now. And your goal is to see how can you get as close to that and still have a profitable business underpinning it. So the importance of having fully integrated, seamless, end-to-end supply chains, information flowing throughout the supply chain so you can do proper planning, effective planning, and have reliable, convenient business processes in place that can be managed, the more valuable that supply chain becomes.
And as you mentioned, expecting certain pricing definitely stresses us on understanding our costs. And this is, again, where a good system comes into play. Without it, we can be, priced out of the market without knowing truly, our costs. And this is not an easy thing to do in any system, but it really becomes, just like you said, it's the speed, but also the pricing. What Amazon has taught us in the B2C world, that we all shop and we compare. And this same thing we see happening also in the business-to-business world.
Absolutely. It's one of the other reasons that clients call me frequently is they could have a some smaller level of system in place, or they do things on Excel, and they don't know how to figure out what their what things cost. What does it cost for them to produce products or distribute products, and what are they really how does that relate to their pricing, and what should they be doing? Because they need to be proactive to be competitive. Everybody wants the same end result, is how do I provide the best service, which includes the shortest lead times, and it includes the deliveries with notice ahead of time and that type of thing. So how do I achieve the best customer service so I can grow my business at the least amount of cost, or the maximizing your margin, and at the least amount of inventory throughout my system so I have the most amount of cash. So it's not either or. We want to achieve the maximum of all three. And certainly in today's Amazon impacted world, the customer is number one, because if you're not growing your business, you're declining, and it will lead to death in terms of the business anyway.
And in transportation costs also, it's been also a pretty difficult area to manage too. And this again stresses, how quickly we can deliver.
Sure. And in the transportation space, I work with several clients in that area, and they're projecting, just because of the Amazon effect, major increases in the expedited shipment model. I mean, they're saying like by 2040 they should have over 200% increase, because it's smaller, unpredictable size lots that have to be shipped in order to meet these smaller retail operations or online services where you're not shipping to big bulk stores as much anymore. So on the retail space, that's driving shipping costs out of your traditional boat and train market into the less than truckload and air market quite a bit in the coming years. And they've already seen a major increase in that in the last couple of years, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. So the Amazon effect is not just a disruption to how you sell stuff to end customers, it's a real disruption to the entire supply chain model and costing model of how traditional business is being done.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to completely agree that it's the other thing that Amazon really has done in terms of what I'm calling the Amazon effect is its visibility throughout the supply chain, like up and down the supply chain, is also really quite key. And so, having a customer portal, having e-commerce capabilities, having a way for your suppliers to collaborate with suppliers so that you have that visibility and that you can, maximize profit so you can achieve a win-win, because a win-lose only goes so far. So,
Exactly.
it's really a key, and it does relate to what processes they have in place, what people and skills they have in place, but then very importantly, what tools and systems they have in place, which is, where, thinking about upgrading to an ERP system once you're already maxed out is not a good time to do it, because if you have customer service issues, you're likely to lose customers and not gain them back. Or if you do gain them back, you gain them back at a significantly lower margin. So it's how to look at that in advance.
Right. And when you're looking at the ERP space in general, it's not just pick any ERP anymore. At this point, if the ERP does not have open integration capabilities built into it that you can connect to other systems effectively, if it can't support electronic communications pretty effectively out of box, if you can't offer it in a hosted type environment so you can push the cost of the infrastructure onto a operating expense rather than a capital expenditure, then, and more importantly, if you can't connect to the web portal operations that are being run by your big customers or vendors, then you're already going behind in this market space. That's become an expectation in the last few years, that your ERP system should have that capability designed in from day one. If your ERP partners are not really strong at delivering that, you need to take a look at those decisions as part of your deciding what ERP system to go with as well. It's a tougher marketplace for everyone, and information is just as valuable as quick physical moves. Knowing where the stuff is and knowing when it will get to you in a reliable manner allows you to plan effectively. I've done a lot of work in the automotive industry where if you are not connected and building a frictionless supply chain from end to end, you don't even get to play anymore. If you can't not only build the product and put it into the crate in the exact design and format so it can be loaded on the truck properly, so it can be unloaded at the exact time it needs to be used in the proper way, you don't get the contract with that customer.
And don't forget the right label.
And the right label, yes. Yes, I mean, we've built systems for customers where they will have a different label, format, and structure for every customer they supply. So this is just becoming an expectation in the business that you're going to be able to get over these hurdles to get to play. And the biggest impact that what we call the Amazon effect is that the expectations keep going up. When the customers can get active information and get what they want from who they want, when they want, at the price they want, you have to step up your game if you want to differentiate yourself.
I made a list of sort of, in a way, in a recap, but some of it could be just an additional one. Lisa, when you say Amazon effect as a metaphor, what do you mean?
Well, really, it boils down to the fact that whether or not Amazon, a lot of people think Amazon does not relate to them because they're not in B2C or they're not dealing in consumer products. But that's really not true at all because Amazon has had a really large impact on uh, all businesses because it's really just made it so that everyone has to take that next step and be that much better to like the base, our old base where we thought this is good, we're functioning at a good level, we can maintain our position. That type of a base is now the next level up. So that old base is now like you're not keeping up. That's really that's what I mean by Amazon as a metaphor. I'm not really talking about Amazon the company or competing with Amazon, but I'm talking about Amazon as a metaphor for raising the bar.
Correct. And I remember over the years we had such resistance, whether it was hooking up to other systems or e-commerce or EDI, like David mentioned. Now you don't even think about it. You must have it. There's such requirements from all sides that that all has to happen too. And again, as we deal mostly in our B2B, we're finding out that a lot of our customers, in effect, become also B2C. They're finding out different sources of revenue and actually do open a shop. Used to be, oh, I cannot compete against, quote, my channel. That's already out of the window. Do you see that also?
So, absolutely. I mean, so I still say it's Amazon as a metaphor when you look at it from an 80-20 perspective. However, what I am seeing is that my distributors or manufacturers are a little different from this point of view. But the manufacturing side of things, I've yet to work with somebody in the last 3 years on an ERP selection project where the capability of e-commerce wasn't a must. Now, that does not even mean that every one of them were looking to send products directly to whoever their end customers might be, which doesn't even have to be a consumer. Could just be a small shipment to their, I don't know, like, if you're supplying hospitals, it could be like, to a patient in the hospital. I mean, it could be anybody along the chain. But they were looking at how do they even have that functionality that can be used for many other purposes, such as collaborating with customers in terms of having them place orders online. And so providing some other capabilities that relate to the same type of functionality to set you up to do e-commerce. From that point of view now, I am finding that slowly but surely manufacturers are offering direct shipments, which is another way to put this, to their end customer. It's a small piece of their business, so in most cases, it's by no means 20%. We could be talking 1%, but it does give them the capability of saying, I offer this service if you're interested. So it keeps them in the game in a way, because if they didn't offer the service, although most people don't utilize the service, if they didn't offer it, they wouldn't be in the game at all. So they are starting to offer that capability. And if they don't offer it internally, they have to outsource it. So one way or another, they have to find a way to, because the customer doesn't care like what's in my bailiwick and what's not. They just want what they want. So in order to be successful serving your customers, you have to think about what do they want, what do they need they don't even think about that they want yet, and how can I set my infrastructure, which includes the people, the process, and the systems. And then in this case, the systems tool is very important because doing all this manually would be for sure cost prohibitive. How do I set my supply chain up to be successful? And so they're all moving in that direction. Whether, I would say, I don't know, maybe 50% are starting to, think about doing the shipments as well, and 20 or 30% are actually already doing shipments. And then on the distributor side of things, for sure they have to be offering that option. then the key is who are, you don't want to compete with your customers, so you have to work through, a win-win in that situation. So there is, and provide different value. So like with Amazon as a company now, not as a metaphor, they provide outstanding service and suggestions and whatnot, but you're not really going to get that personalized service where you can say, oh, don't use this valve here because it's going to create this other problem there, because that's more of a complicated sale and a technical process. So they're providing that extra value, and they can sometimes even collaborate with Amazon directly, if you will, or whatever makes sense in their situation. But they're all moving in that direction. So what I'd say, Barry, is that it's a significant trend. But if we were to add up the volume, it'd be minuscule still at this point.
Right. And what I've been seeing a lot of is an increase at the distributor level towards the capabilities around a drop shipment option.
Yep.
A lot of that
Exactly.
comes that the distributor doesn't want to carry the inventory and carry the inventory carrying costs. The manufacturer is being given the orders that are being taken at the distributor and drop shipping direct to the end customer that's ordering it. That I've seen a major increase in the last few years on, and it changes the model all the way through. Again, the distributor's not carrying the big inventory costs that they used to. The manufacturer is now making smaller lot productions because they're delivering in much smaller quantities rather than a big quantity to a centralized distributor, and that completely changes the pricing model and the costing models associated. So these things, have to be looked at, and you need to have the capability to accurately understand what those impacts are going to be on the bottom line. I mean, in the old days, the idea was you would push inventory further and further back in the supply chain so that eventually the raw materials would carry all the cost. But at some point, you have to do the analysis to determine what is the right optimization to have in what locations for everyone to come away with this in a win-win and not just keep pushing it down. And that's the models that we're seeing crop up more and more, where supply chain collaboration discussions happen. You want to be able to produce in the proper lots to make something cost effective. You want to be able to ship in the lots to make it cost effective, but you can get different price options available if the customer is willing to pay for the premium of getting something faster, getting proper information, getting smaller quantities delivered in a just-in-time type operation. And these things have to be something that gets analyzed not just by one link in the supply chain, but something that's going to get looked at all the way up and down for it to be real effective.
Great. I want to share something with you all that came about from actually visiting different clients. And somebody complained that Amazon's warehouse opened and they were losing employees to Amazon. So all of a sudden, the bar has to be actually also raised, being competitive, attracting and keeping employees. Here we are, we're training how to use our warehouse management system. They know how to use scanners, and here comes Amazon and takes them away for obviously slightly better wages. So all of a sudden, the stress on the business also has to cover that probably most important resource, and that's our employees. It's again, it was a sort of an eye-opener. And all of a sudden, you actually can be reading about it. This is a major stress, also on companies too. I shared, actually another account shared something with me that I sort of didn't think about, how they use actually Amazon as customer acquisition. So if they see that, they need to brand their product. So even if they're a manufacturer that's going through the channel, they do want to establish a name and brand their product. And sometimes instead of fighting Amazon, they actually sell through Amazon. And yes, they probably make less than they should, but in effect, they can acquire a customer and then provide the product directly and probably with a better service. So again, it's a different way of looking things, but it could be looked at as a customer acquisition too. And now that's something to think about it, but again, you gotta be ready for it. So everything that goes with the ERP system and all the connections, as David said, to the outside, whether it's the e-commerce platforms or EDI, all of that has to be in place too. So for some of you who have not yet made the decision to go to ERP, talk to us. This is definitely the time to address that, not when it's too late. Anything else we want to add?
Well, I would just concur with that. Certainly, it is making the skills gap more prevalent. And one of the things that can help if you grow, I mean, hopefully we're all growing. So assuming you grow and you happen to wait too long to look at upgrading your system with a new ERP system, it means that you have to add additional resources and additional people. And it's very hard to find the types of people that my clients are looking for that can help them grow their business. So it's another thing that it helps you make sure that you do achieve a scalable growth, is if you start to proactively look at investing before you need it. It's like going to the bank when you need a loan. Many times the bank says no, but if you go to the bank before you need the loan, they're more than thrilled to talk to you. So it's kind of the same thing here, of looking at the systems right before you need it. If nothing else, you're prepared so that you can pull the trigger in enough time so that you can continue to retain the employees you have, because none of them want to be doing manual Excel spreadsheets at nauseum to try to sustain growth. So they get a bit frustrated and bored. So it's a way to maintain employees and to just position the new ones that you find as to be the fewer of them and the higher skilled resources, so that you can then drop significantly more profit to your bottom line while also growing your business. So I just would support that idea of there's no harm in looking before you need it.
Well, I think we're just about under a half hour, as I promised. So in closing, again, I want to thank you all of you for joining us. And hopefully we have raised the awareness level of how to be competitive and to actually stay in this business landscape that's really changing fast on us. Lisa has a very informative newsletter on a very regular basis that talks a lot about those subjects. And I will share your attendance with her, so you will receive a copy of it. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy it just like I do.
Excellent.
I want to remind also, you're welcome. I also remind you, for a lot of you that have been joining us on our 15-minute tip talks, there's going to be one next week. And actually, that sort of falls into it, how to turn a sales order into a purchasing document. And that's part of Business One, again, to be efficient in going through your own business processes. You're most welcome to call me, email me, and I'll be more than happy to connect you with Lisa and David with any questions you may have. Again, thank you and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.